carried away by my own story, so I'll try to keep on track. So the reason I love this topic is because of all the debates that goes on online. I'm typically a logger. I don't really comment, or I just laugh and exchange gossip with all my friends on WhatsApp. But I think in SEO, nothing's like SEO. You are as smart as like the websites you've worked on, the projects you've done. There is no definite A equals to B, and that's why we have it depends. And that's one of the things that led this talk, because I was like, everyone's debating on, should I have an LLM TXT, should I do this, is AEO same as SEO, or what? And I think fundamentally, loads of people are asking these questions because they don't understand how LLMs work or how these large language models were built. And if you understand this, most things are logic. If you understand the logic, you can apply it to a host of things. Because I'll give you an example. Years ago, and this will expose how old I am, I used to work for Carphone Warehouse. And in that time, we used to sell, Apple was notorious because they didn't do any SEO, they didn't do any marketing, they just believed we're Apple, we will rank. And of course, those were the days where keywords ruled, and so everyone used to outrank them. And so if you sold their product, they used to put an emblem on where you couldn't go out and mention the product until the launch day. And so we were like, oh my God, how are we going to outrank Apple on the launch day? Because we absolutely had to sell and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, we're just going to make the H1 iPhone 16 on the day. Whatever iPhone it was then, maybe 0, -1, I don't know, I can't remember. And everyone was like, how? That doesn't make sense. No, that's not the most important thing on the page. We should be building more. And I was like, let's just try it. And we did, and we outran Apple on the launch, and they actually emailed us and asked us to take the page down. And so we had to change it. And that was like, logically that wouldn't make sense. Logically that's not, someone would say, why are you doing that? And they were like, in that week I was like nominated for like award, and when they asked, what did you do? What's this big strategy? And I was like, no, I just changed the thing. They're like, okay, no, you don't deserve it. I was like, okay. Because it all depends. Like, if you understand the logic, if you try things, try it and see, and then make up your mind whether it works or not. Okay, so today we're going to cover how AI understands language, what is technical SEO for AI, content strategy, authority and brand. Now, I'm going to whiz through these things because definitely will overrun, but just come find me, happy to speak about any of these things on the side, okay? So, first things first, should we ignore chunking? Should we even care? I think for me, this is the most basic thing to understand, is I type in a query, what happens? I type in that query into a large language model, it takes that query, it takes a bit of the data, it goes back, and it breaks it down into numbers, and those numbers into vectors, and it writes a mathematical equation to kind of match it up. It doesn't actually understand that this is a cat, this is blue, this is green, this is anything. It takes it and it says, what is the next best thing? Because if I'm saying, okay, it matches up C and A and B and 1, how does it know that CAT is the right thing to go? So for example, if I say, there is no crying after spilt, how does it know that the answer is milk? Because it says in the frequency of probability, milk is the thing I always see come up. And so all AI is doing is a predictive engine on steroids, that's it. And that's why it's like an intent that's so helpful. It just wants to please you, and that's why it always gets, it can get things wrong, because rather than coming back to say, hey, sorry, I wasn't able to do a good job today, it just hallucinates the fact, and it goes to the next best guess, and it just tries to make things up to please you. And I think if you understand that core basic, when people ask me, should I write my content with AI, I'm just like, ah. If you understand that, the first one might be great, and then the next, and that's why these large language models, they go out and they're data holes. They just go and they keep chomping on data, because they need that data not to become samey. They need that data to expand their knowledge base, to get more interested. And when people say, LLMs are not that creative, this is what they mean, because it's not going to go out and invent something new. It's just going to go and copy and maybe modify, and it will copy something you've not seen, and you're like, oh my God. I mean, who's heard Melissa, I'm drunk and outside? That some madness. And it's written by AI, but then the poor people who's written, who like the poor person who invented Soka is there in their background trying to write a hit. But then, I don't like, this is amazing, but no, it's not amazing. It's just stolen a bunch of works that I haven't heard before, put it together, and created the best speed of head. And then I'm like, this is super interesting, but that's what AI, and I feel if you understand these things, you can make a guess on what you need to do and what you should be using AI for. And so, as Nick has said, all of these models, they are so scared of being wrong, and so especially when you ask them for a query that's frequently changing, like, what's the price of this? They will then go out into the web and then say, okay, I need to verify this information from a site, and then again, what are they going to look for? Which site? Like, again, you can imagine that I have to take a large chunk of information, I have to work out this mathematical equation, I have to do it really quickly, I have to come back with an answer all in minutes. Where would I go? I will go to the most authoritative site, the site that is often cited. And no one will run again. It's often because the more it does that, the more it's rinse and repeat. If it's the most cited, it will just continue until something else takes over. And that's why now everyone's talking about brand, isn't it? Make your brand the most, because if your brand becomes the one that is cited, it will just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Okay, so I think the key thing here is, has anyone seen the paper, Attention is All You Need? Yes, please read it again. The key thing here is like agents don't have infinite context. They take something, they have to break it down, they have to understand it, and they need to do it quickly. So it's all about data. Data is so expensive. And so when you hear people talking about should I do this and should I do that, is the question we're all asking is, how do I get an LLM to process my data quickly and to make me its preferred source? That's all we're asking. And so the answer might be different from everyone. Like, for example, we say good SEO is the radio. If you haven't got the foundations to even be in the training model, you're wasting your time trying to run after branding. Okay, so all of these things that we keep talking about and arguing about are called agentic architecture, because these are all the ground things that these LLMs need to use to process data, to understand it, to connect to tools, because the goal of any LLM and eventually agentic AI and agentic eCommerce, which is where we're all going to, is to be able to perform a task autonomously. And for them to be able to speak to other tools and speak to other things and reason and all of that, they need to be able to connect to other tools. And that's what all of these things that we are doing to optimize our sites are enabling them to do. So the first thing first is markup. Now, I love, I'm going to get his name wrong, but it's on the next slide anyway. He has a really good analogy that I do use, markup, markdown, and I'm going to go back to it. It says, markdown is like a friend coming to your house and saying, oh, I'm so hungry, can I have some spaghetti? And then you say, okay, yeah, go to the kitchen. And that person has to rummage through your cupboard and find the spaghetti and the water and boiling, whereas markdown is just like, yeah, here is the spaghetti, it's all done, it's all cooked for you, So when we talk about these models needing to process data fast, markdown is just stripping your data of everything that's not needed, okay? Stripping it of all the brackets, all the things, so that it can pass that data and process it really quickly. And that's all it is. And so if you think about it, that in the race for data, I mean, we've heard so many things about data centers being built, people being laid off to build more data centers. When we think about it, why wouldn't you need markdown? Because it's just like speed. It's like speed optimization for AI. So why wouldn't you do it? So, I mean, basic SEO, isn't it? JavaScript, structuring your website well, allowing you to know where to call and access it, but you can't read your content. Cool. This was just introduced, I think on the 12th of June, isn't it? And literally, it's almost like a sitemap for Markdown. And Google's introduced this. I would recommend going to Mary Hayes. She's got an old OFK of her brain, and it's literally a mind map. It reminds me of those days of HTML sitemaps. It's just like that. It's literally telling, this is how you crawl outside, this is how you find the lightest files, this is exactly what you do in the simplest format. And then you come to all of this. I always say, to me, this reminds me of the days of should I do crawl rates, should I not do crawl rates? what should I do on my website? Should I divide my XML sitemaps into smaller pieces and smaller chunks? It reminds me of that. If you have a small website that's easily accessible, that's 200, chill out. But if you have a massive e-commerce site, and you know that it's even difficult for crawlers to find your site now, how do you think a bot that is trying to pass information quickly and do grounding and say, no, it's going to find that content? So to me, if you think about these things logically, it's super easy to answer these questions of what do you need to do and what don't you need to do. MCPs. Now, this is going to become the latest log file analysis. So because MCPs are just like connectors that go behind the scenes, and then rather than the AI having to figure out the language, it goes to the MCP. It's almost like an adapter, and it downloads that information and it passes it to a language that it understands. And MCPs, you can see how the agents have access to site, what happened, did they encounter what errors they encountered. This is going to be the new skills. When we talk about, when Nick was saying about marketing engineering, they're going to be building the OFKs, they're going to be looking at log files, analyzing this, understanding how agents are accessing the site and what they're doing. I think the key thing is be accessible. You want to be discoverable. You want to be able to download your content fast and quick. You want to make sure that within that context window, this is where we keep saying, put the most important content at the top, because when it grabs that piece of information, that context, that place is chunky, you want to make sure that it's efficient, that nothing is truncated, so it doesn't have to go back again and call that information. You want to, using the LLMs and all of these texts, to say, okay, this is exactly where you need to go, in the markdown, this is exactly what you need to do. And then saying, okay, this place, no, don't go there, that's not where the most efficient information is, this is where you need to go. Cool. And then going back to content strategies, isn't it? I've done all these things. Well, how can I be included in the grounding? I've made my site accessible. And I think, I'm not going to beat around the bush here, because I feel like this is something we say all the time. And everyone in SEO has probably seen a slide like this. When we talk about clear the structures, simple language, writing prompts, front load the facts, all this kind of stuff. Make your content fresh. So I'm not going to dwell on it, but yeah, this is there. And then again, I say consistency is the new keyword, because again, we talked about LLMs being predictive models. All they're doing is saying, if I say mirror is a cat 700 times, I ask it what's mirror, it will say mirror is a cat. But if I say mirror is a cat today, she's a dog, tomorrow she's I don't know, then it gets confused. So edit your brand, make sure that it's consistent, end a knowledge graph so that it knows that you are an entity and it knows how to recognize you. And then don't copy everyone. These are the key things. We're still talking about EAT, and it still matters in this age because of branding. Because LLMs want to cite authoritative sources, and they want to make sure that they're getting the information right. And thank you.